record. Okay, so third part of the 6.2, the blood systems. We're going to focus on the control of the cardiac cycle. Sorry. Control of this cardiac muscle cycle. I was looking up a few details for my explanation today. Oh, wait, am I on a VPN? I shouldn't be on a VPN. It's not good. This is not your class. This is grade 9.
Oh, ecosystem.
Right? Today I did, actually, wait, let's go back. Today I did the demonstration of, like the 90%, 10% thing. Check this out. I did it in my kitchen with like soy sauce and water. Very innovative. Anyway, okay. Cardiac cycle control. So why don't we pick up with the part where we stopped off with the graph yesterday. Okay, so today is the sinoatrial node and coronary heart disease, coronary artery disease, however you want to call it. Where's the PPT gone? Here we go. Let's start here. Okay, so I described a little bit for you over there. Let's just do this. Annotate, draw, change the color to pink. All right. Can we do? I don't want to choose you just because I can see you. That's not fair. Let's do this. I'll take volunteers to start, and if I can't get enough volunteers, I'll go to the list of names. If we did a box around this section, so this is this would be ventricular, well, actually, this part would be ventricular systole. Okay, so I want to ask you, can someone help us to explain, first of all, let's go just from the top, okay? So from the first line down, why does this line, the black line in behind, why does that aortic pressure go up?
Because blood is being pumped through.
From where to where?
Oh, Jesus. From the ventricle to the aorta.
Perfect. So if you're pumping stuff into this blood vessel, obviously that pressure is going to rise. Okay, next. Can someone try to tell us why does this blue line have this extraordinary spike? The ventricular pressure.
The heart squeezing.
Ventricular system.
Sorry, Daniel, give it a shot. I couldn't hear you.
The heart is squeezing, pumping.
Yeah, can we use the terms? The ventricle is, instead of squeezing,
pumping.
Yes, another word starts with C.
Contracts.
There you go. The ventricle is contracting, right? So if it's squeezing or pumping or contracting, it's getting much smaller. Smaller volume means higher pressure. And that's the really strong pump, which is why we see a huge spike in ventricular pressure. Okay, let's try. Why does, and this is a little bit tricky. Let's just do the ventricular volume first. Why does ventricular volume take a huge dive here? I basically just told you.
Because at the ventricular system.
And so what's the relationship between these two?
Because the heart is squeezing.
What's the relationship between pressure and volume?
The smaller the volume, the higher the pressure.
So then?
Because the volume of the blood doesn't change.
Correct. So if the pressure has increased, then, or actually it should be the other way around, but because the volume is decreased is also partially why the pressure increases, right? They're inversely proportional. Okay, and then the last one, which is a little bit funny, is why is there this little blip here in the atrial pressure? What do you think? The atria. Any thoughts? Because technically the atria contracted. This should say atrial systole. I'm not sure why that's like that. The atria contracted over here, or at least here, somewhere in the middle of this. Why is it the pressure increasing again when really it should be relaxing?
The valves are yay. So the space is like yay.
Okay, could be something like that. And I think another way to add to it is, remember the atria are really thin, right? They're really, really small. So even though they aren't contracting, because the ventricle is so strong and so muscular, when it squeezes, it like the atria is affected. It's kind of like, oh my God, exactly like you said, the valve is kind of snapping and pushing upwards, and the atria is kind of like, whoa, and like moving because the ventricle below it is contracting. So it's not actively contracting, but it's a consequence of the ventricle contracting. Okay. Nice. I think we can leave the diastole alone, right? This is just everything will relax again. So nice. Please make sure, again, like I said, that you were able to describe these 3 sections. Yeah, this seems like this should probably say atrial systole, not diastole.
Oh, so like yesterday, didn't like we say that during ventricular systole ding dong, that blood might come into the atria,
Right.
but then today like just now you said that the ventricle is so strong, so it affects the atria. So maybe that's why the blood doesn't come in at that point.
Could be. But wait, we said that would happen during ventricular systole? Yeah, so I guess it could be, but because it's like maybe being compressed, it might not be able to so much. But I mean, there's still gonna be blood, right? Because here's the thing, the one thing that is a little bit tricky to think of is there's kind of always blood everywhere, right? Like it's sort of like a continuous thing. It's not like parts of your heart are gonna be just like empty. That doesn't make any sense. There's not like air pockets like, whoa, wait, we're waiting for space. And then the blood goes to the heart chamber. And then what's behind it? Just air? No, that's not how it works. So there's blood, like it's a continuous thing. So it's more just like the force and like how quickly is it moving in from space to space. It's a little bit tough to conceptualize. I actually saw recently, I think it was on Instagram or something, someone did like a visualization where it shows blood moving through the heart. I'll see if I saved it or not. Try to send it through.
Okay, so technically when the ventricle is relaxing, the muscle is relaxing, the blood is coming in already.
Yeah. Which is why which is why, no, you don't see it in here. There's, when the ventricle is relaxing, yes, blood is starting to flow into the atria, correct. So that might be, oh no, that's because of the valve sound, this little bump here. I thought there was a hidden bump in the atrial pressure somewhere.
But
Not sure where it is.
But then when the ventricle is relaxed into the diastole space, the blood is coming in already. Then at the atrial systole, the atria still have to contract to push the blood in.
Yes, to push it down into the ventricle, right?
But I thought it's fulfilled already.
It's not, wait, what's filled already?
Like when the ventricle is relaxing, because there's not supposed to be existence of gas, right?
Right. So it's not that it's not, it would still have some, but I guess this is more like forcefully filling it up, right? So you can have changes in pressure because you're adding more. So there might be some, but it's not like, do you know what I mean?
Okay, so it's just like adding.
It's like giving it extra push to like fill it up completely. So it's like having like a tap on and off, right? Like you could have it on slow and then turn it on higher. It's still a continuous stream. Not on and off, but higher and lower. Yeah?
I remember blood is not compressible, right?
I mean, it's still a liquid, so it has some, not much. But so, and you're not, I mean, compressibility is relative because the heart chambers are also they're not solid, right? They can expand. Those are muscular and elastic. So you're right. I mean, it's not compressible because they have very low compressibility, I should say, because it's a fluid, right? Liquid, excuse me. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Yes. Okay, this should just be all the answers that we went through. So let's leave it at, make sure you know this stuff, but specifically, like we said, the heart sound stuff and the valve sound stuff, the electrical impulse stuff, not critical yet. For the regular syllabus, you don't need to know it.
Oh my God.
You didn't see this yesterday? All right.
Oh.
He wasn't here yesterday.
I wasn't here. Oops. But damn. Okay, continue.
Anyway, yes. So the story was, I don't know, it was just like some weird feeling that I had. I was just like, I might as well go get it checked out. So they did this, like, they just did an ECG because they can, and it's super cool. So they hook you up to this thing, and it basically traces like electrical. It detects electrical impulses on the surface of the skin, and those electrical impulses can be related to your heartbeat. Now you're wondering, what's the connection here? Because I mean, a heartbeat is like a muscle contraction, right? It's not like, shouldn't you be looking for like a sensation or a movement or some kind of like a feeling for the heart sound or for the heart function? Why are they looking at electricity? So the answer to that is that your heartbeat is controlled by an electrical signal. Okay, so when there's electrical signals that go through your heart, it can be detected and traced on this paper. And actually, the other video that I sent you of the baby's stress test, that's like the same idea, right? It's detecting like electrical changes in his heartbeat. So what you can see, I know the image is not great, but sort of a typical pattern for electrical signaling of a heart should look something like this. And again, in another later time, you'll see what each of these bumps means, each of these peaks and valleys. And then you can see like what a doctor might look for in a like an unnatural ECG. So ECG or EKG, they're the same thing. So you might look for like a very strange pattern that might be like too many electrical signals at once with no like rest phases in between, or a signal like this one where there's way too many rest phases and not enough spikes. You might see like people, these two people are having like a heart attack, basically. Their electrical signaling is all over the place. Okay, so what you're looking for is this pattern, the one you see right here, this pattern, just repeating with the same regularity. Now, what is that pattern showing? First, we need to know how the heartbeat is controlled. So how does your heart actually do the contraction? How does the atrium contract? How does the ventricle contract? It starts in a location of your heart called the sinoatrial node, and it's known as the pacemaker of the heart. And you can short form this to SAN, okay, sinoatrial node. And the sinoatrial node is this bundle, I'm gonna use a different color here, is this bundle right here of a specific type of cell called a myocyte, okay? Myocyte.
We're supposed to know their location.
Yes, I'm going to show you another diagram in a second. So this bundle of cells, this type of cell, actually is a cardiac myocyte because there's different types of myocytes. Okay, cardiac myocyte. Cardiac myocyte is a type of muscle cell, but that also has nervous signaling abilities. If you look at if you take a look later at this little image or little mini video, it'll show you that these myocytes, they stand alone. They're not connected to any other nerves. There's no nerve like signaling it, telling it what to do, but it will on its own just pulse. And that's just, there's a, what do you call? Like a electrochemical something going on, like ion changes and so on, that cause that to happen. We don't need, that's not important at this level. But the most important thing is it can sort of twitch by itself, okay? That's its kind of unique characteristic. It doesn't need anything to tell it to do that, it just does it. So a bunch of these cells, all grouped as one, can do this sort of twitching ability, okay? And where we find this sinoatrial node meaning like one like small region, is in the upper part of the right atrium, okay? So on the right-hand side, there's this bundle of myocytes, these special muscle cells called the sinoatrial node. Now, just a little bit separated from the sinoatrial node is another node right here. Oops, sorry. Right here, called the atrioventricular node, or the AV node. Now notice these yellow arrows, they're actually arrows, they're not nerves. They're showing a signal being sent across the atria. The AV node is not directly connected to the SA node. Okay, there's a gap here, there's a space. The AV node, however, is directly connected to this whole set of nerves that goes down through the septum and up and around the ventricles. I think I'm gonna jump to the next slide because it's a bigger image. Yes, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna skip here and I'll redraw this. Okay, so, oops. AV node here, connected to all of these.
Quick question, do we need to know how to spell AV node?
I mean, it's just atrioventricular, just like the valves, right? It's between the atrium and ventricle, atrioventricular. So it's not really a new word. Okay, then you have the sinoatrial node, which was here, okay? Not connected, as you can see. So this is how this works. The sinoatrial node sends, or does its signal, okay? So it sends this like impulse, sort of, like a the way I kind of think of it is like the sinoatrial node works like a Wi-Fi router, and the AV node works like an Ethernet, like a, what do you call that, LAN cable. The sinoatrial node sends a signal, and the signal just kind of like moves through the top of the heart here and across this side. And what it's going to do is it's going to signal the atria to contract. Okay, so it's gonna like basically get in touch with all the other cells of the atria, the muscles of the atrial wall, and that's the signal for the atria to contract. Now, eventually, that signal also reaches the AV node. When the signal hits the AV node sends its signal through this set of cables, through these nerves, and then all the muscles of the ventricle will contract after that. So what does this mean? We're basically saying that, oops, sorry. This is like step 2. Okay, step 2 is that ventricles contract. Step 1, Step 1 was that the atria contract. So what this allows is for a slight delay. While this signal is being sent through the atrial walls and causing them to contract, it gives us a little bit of time to wait for the signal to reach the AV node before the ventricles contract. Why is this important? Because you don't want the entire heart just going poof, all at once. Because then blood is just going to go all over the place and you don't have unidirectional pumping. So one really important part of having these two sort of control centers, one being the beginning one, the SA node, is that you have a slight delay between when the atria contract, small delay while the signal gets to the AV node, then the AV node is like, sends the signal through the ventricles contract.
Is there only one sinoatrial node?
Yes.
Wait, so only exists in the right atrium?
Correct.
Okay.
What if someone has it in the left one?
I don't think it should matter. I think it just might be weird if you were like having a problem with it. That's also, this is all, some of that is part of the next, the option D if we get there, is like, what if someone's sinoatrial node doesn't work? So there's like surgeries where they can install something that like does this for you. So it does the signaling. The reason it's called a pacemaker is it keeps your heart beating at the right pace, right? So it sends a signal at the correct interval. But if you had one of those ECGs and your thing is all like messed up, then they can insert this thing also called a pacemaker, but it's like a machine, a small little thing, and it sends the impulse on behalf of your messed up SA node. Which if you've ever watched, like, there's like some TV shows or movies where like, you know, those like CIA, FBI things where they're like, that general has a pacemaker, we're gonna hack into it and like, and they can kill someone by turning off their pacemaker. It's crazy.
We need to know the name of the bundle of his bundle.
No. For now, just say it's nerves. If we end up doing option D, if Michelle lets us do option D, then yes, we do have to know those names.
Bundle of his?
It's someone's name, it's not his or her. The guy's name is his.
That's a weird name.
Uh-huh. You're telling me.
Wait, but I'm just interested. What if the pacemaker is the original is like messed up, sending impulse randomly, then how is the machine pacemaker sending another signal that's having a higher priority for the AV nerve?
I think it depends on the type of problem with the existing node. I think there's different types of pacemakers. So usually what the pacemaker does is it detects if the SA node starts like doing something erratic, and then it'll like, it's like a little mini shock, and it'll like reset it kind of to go back to a pace, the correct pace. Or I think if it stops, it can also detect that and then just like take over and send the shocks like at the regular interval. I think there's different versions of it, like different ways that it can work. Okay, let me just check if we missed anything. Whoops. Oh, yes. It's important to note here, clear this, that of course, one of the nice things about this is you don't have to think about it, right? So there's no need for like the brain to send a signal down. This will just happen on its own, right? Heart just beats. Even, you know, if you think of some people who have like severe injuries, like maybe, you know, they have like brain damage, or they're paralyzed or whatever, but their heart can keep beating, right? They can actually continue to pump blood around the body because you don't actually need a signal from the brain to do this.
But why the heartbeat stops when the brain dies?
Eventually, because you're also not breathing, right? So if you don't provide oxygen to the tissues of the body, eventually all tissues will not be able to respire.
Then the heart should continue to breathe until the cells are going to die, right?
Until the cells can't do respiration anymore. Because even the myocyte still needs energy, right? Still needs energy from respiration. So.
But remember, the heartbeat just stops like immediately after the brain dies. I'm not sure whether that happens. It's in the movie.
Maybe it's just the movie. But yeah, I mean, it might not be that long. You would still need to get some oxygen flowing. But if the brain stops, then your breathing stops, and then pretty quickly after that, your heart will stop. Unless you get on a respirator or like a ventilator, which will help you to breathe, which brings oxygen in, which might be able to keep the heart going. Okay. Okay, now that's one thing. So that's your regular heartbeat, right? So it doesn't need any help, doesn't need signals from the brain. However, there are times where you need your heart rate to increase or to decrease, okay? So there is still a connection between the brain and the pacemaker via nerves. So we have two nerves. I'm going to jump here. So there's two nerves that will connect the medulla of the brain, so this region of the brain, and the sinoatrial node. You do not need this signal for regular heartbeats, regular cardiac cycle, but this can help to speed up, and then once we don't need it sped up, to slow it down via these two nerves. So obviously acceleran's nerve is there to help accelerate the heart, the cardiac cycle. So if there's a condition detected, then the brain will send a signal through this nerve to the pacemaker to be like, more, like go faster. We need to do more heartbeats. And then once that condition is reduced, then again, this is kind of like negative feedback, right? So you want to turn that off. So there'll be a signal sent by the brain through the vagus nerve to be like, okay, slow down, we're good. Good job, but chill out. So that's one option. And one of the conditions where this happens is obviously when you are doing sort of physical activity or exercising, right? And you are respiring, your cells are respiring, you're producing a lot of CO2. What does CO2 do? CO2 will drop your pH in the blood, right? CO2 drops your blood pH. So when your blood slowly becomes more acidic, the brain's like, oh, shoot, like this is not good. We need to get some of this out of here. The blood's becoming too acidic. So in combination, later we'll do the breathing system, right? One thing it does is it signals your breathing muscles to breathe more deeply and more rapidly, but also for your heart to pump more blood so that it gets out, right? Gets to the lungs more so you can move that CO2 out through exhalation. And then, of course, it returns back to normal once the CO2 levels get back to an acceptable level. The second...
What about when you get scared?
Sorry?
What about when you get scared?
That when you get scared is due to this, adrenaline.
Oh.
Okay? So when you get scared is this response, right? Fight or flight. When something scares you, you get all tensed up. There's all kinds of different responses. What kind of stuff happens to you when you get scared to your body?
Pupil dilation.
Sweat.
Go to toilet.
Sometimes. Sweating, pupils dilating, might lose...
I can't get it out.
Jesus.
Still? This whole time?
Dude, life is hard.
Should we scare you? Is that how did this relate right now?
Just carry on.
Yeah.
Blah, blah.
Yeah. Please make sure to mute in case something.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sweating, pupils dilating. What about all your muscles? What do they do?
Tighten.
Sure, tighten, they clench up, right? Blood flow is going to do what? What happens to the blood flow?
Speed up.
It's going to speed up, yes. Where does it go?
To the major organs.
Goes to the muscles?
Yeah, more likely it's going to go to the muscles, right? So when you get something like a feeling like butterflies, or you have like your skin sometimes turns, if people get scared, they'll go pale, right? Like really quickly. So blood is moving away from unnecessary regions to where it's needed, which would be brain, muscles, those kinds of things, right? The essentials. And then of course, rapid breathing and rapid heart beating. So it's getting ready for you to decide what you're going to do, either to run away or to fight whatever this thing is. I actually had
Mr. Neil,
yeah.
Do we need to know the name for the two signals? Like what is it called? The celery something and
the two nerves?
Yeah, is this called the two nerves or is this two signals? That's called.
No, these are two nerves. Two names. These are the names of the nerves.
We have to know it, right?
I think so. Here, the learning objective says brought to the heart through two nerves from the medulla of the brain. So it doesn't say that you specifically need to know the name, but I mean, I think you could probably remember those two. One just means make something go faster, right? Accelerans. Okay. So the two things that can adjust the heart, the pacemaker, right, from its normal rate are these two nerves that are connected to the brain and the hormone adrenaline, which will be released in times of fear or overexcitement or nervousness.
But Mr. Nilan, does this hormone instantly change the heart rate, or it has like a lag?
Well, there would be, I mean, it must be pretty instant, but
then like sometimes if you get scared, like when playing a video game, you kind of get scared and then you run away first, and then you're like, oh my god, my heart's so fast. Like
well,
after you get scared.
If you think about it, like the adrenaline is produced. Does anyone remember where is the adrenal gland?
Producing adrenal.
Where in your body is the adrenal gland is the question.
It's like kidney or pancreas.
Yeah, it's on top of the kidney. So if I draw a kidney, okay, the adrenal gland is found right on top here. It sits on top. So that means like it must take some time for that to be one, released into the bloodstream, and then to get to all these places, right? It has to get to your heart, to the brain, to the muscles, to the all these things.
Wait, but the heart rate is controlled by the nerve signals from the brain. So
Right.
the hormone have to reach the brain in order.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's still, I mean, maybe that speaks more to how quickly blood flows through the body than anything else. Okay, I'm just gonna skip over this because I think we know that the answer is all of these things. Okay, so that's the first part, how the blood is controlled. Now, gross stuff. This.
Hey, we're not in school, so we won't have to eat lunch later.
I'm eating lunch now.
You gotta eat at some point. All right, so what we're looking at here, folks, is an artery that is supposed to be.
I thought it was a donut.
Ew. Ew. It should be this big, but now the lumen is only this big.
To be honest, when I'm taking class, my heart is feeling weird.
Atria supposed to be so.
Yes, but it is much bigger than it's supposed to be. All of this stuff here is cholesterol that has built up and made the walls of this artery much, much fatter than, much, much thicker than it's supposed to be, which has made the lumen much smaller.
Wait, what? Those are fats?
But atria is supposed to have small lumen.
Yes, but this is even smaller than it's supposed to be.
So those are fats?
Cholesterol. Cholesterol and plaques and built up other things. So what I'm going to show you in this next little bit is
you are what you eat.
Some of the causes of something called coronary heart disease or coronary artery disease.
But wait, but why are them like accumulated in the artery instead of outside?
What do you mean?
Like usually the fats, I mean, I'm a little bit confused, but I'm assuming those are stuff similar to fats. They are like placed around the muscle instead of in the artery.
So in this diagram, if you can see this image, this is part of how this works. So what cholesterol does, now remember from the membrane topic, that cholesterol is necessary, right? We still need cholesterol to build cell membranes and to create there's certain hormones that are cholesterol based and so on. So it is important. But the problem that happens is when there's too much and too much of like the bad types of cholesterol. So what will happen is, let me just get this out of the way. Okay. If you have too much cholesterol, sometimes it can get deposited in the walls of the artery. So what this is showing here in this drawing, let me do green, okay, is that like this yellowish junk here has sort of settled in the wall. So it's like it's pushed its way into the muscle wall of the artery and it's settled there. And then like more has started to collect. And then those cholesterols will like form more sort of like a fatty pocket. And this whole thing is called a plaque. Okay, a plaque is this like buildup, this little, like, I don't know what other word to use for this, like a blob of stuff that's collected. And so if that were to happen, that in itself is not the worst thing. It does start to, I mean, if it starts to bulge out like this, you're obviously making the lumen smaller, right? So there's less space, which can affect blood pressure. And at that point, it's maybe just a blood pressure issue, but not a big deal. The problem that happens is if this part bursts out, okay? If this part breaks open, what you're going to be dealing with is something that your body is supposed to do, which is clotting of blood, okay? So when there's damage to a blood vessel, it's supposed to do blood clotting, so you stop bleeding. But normally, the damage happens over here, right? So if there's a cut to your body from the outside, then yeah, you want there to be a blood clot forming there so that blood doesn't come out of your body. But in this case, the damage signal is coming from the wrong place. The damage signal is coming from the inside of the blood vessel. So your body's going to be like, okay, I mean, there's damage, so let's go fix it. And then they're going to make a blood clot here. But this is where the blood is flowing, right? So now there's a clot on the inside of your blood vessel. This is a problem.
Hence, less stroke.
So then it can dislodge, exactly. It could come loose. And now it's like this blood clot is floating around in your bloodstream. Obviously, when it gets to like some really small blood vessels, it could get stuck and it could cause like a restriction to the blood flow, or the blood flow can't get through. So that is called coronary thrombosis, okay? So if these blood clots form in your arteries, it's called coronary thrombosis. And this can cause a lot of problems. Yes, like Michael said, like a stroke. Another different problem is called atherosclerosis, and I kind of touched on this last day. This is the hardening of the arteries. Okay, hardening of the arteries. Why does this happen? Macrophages. Macrophages are just phagocytes, okay? Macrophages are just phagocytes. And they are also going to be kind of part of this process if parts of the artery wall get damaged. And what they do is they try to help rebuild the part that got broken apart. But when they rebuild it, they're kind of building it in like with less elastic material. It's more like scar tissue. So now imagine you're repairing a blood vessel that's supposed to be very like elastic and able to like form and like move and change shape and deal with pressure. And now you're rebuilding it with something very rigid and hard. And now it can't deal with high pressure blood. The overall effect of that is that you're going to have less elastic arteries, which leads to high blood pressure. Okay. Any questions about that?
Question on.
Yeah.
If the plaque ruptures, right, like for the first one, the coronary thrombosis, would there be like a feeling for like your artery like bursting?
Nope. This is why usually you have no idea that you even have coronary thrombosis or coronary heart disease or even high blood pressure. So the symptoms often come much later along the line. So like you might notice, for example, like maybe you lose feeling in like your fingers or something, or in your toes, and you might just be like, this is weird. Like why would that happen? Well, that might be because there's a blood clot somewhere that's blocking blood flow to a certain part of your body, right? So there's really not a lot of indicators, like good indicators that would be like, oh, I better go check to make sure I don't have, these issues.
Let's go check right now.
So you can do, obviously if you go to the doctor regularly, they might do, this is more for older people, of course. Not older people, but like me, they would check your they would check your blood cholesterol, for example, right? If you get regular blood tests, one of the things they would do is test your blood cholesterol. So that could be, if your cholesterol is a bit too high, that could maybe be something. Then they would follow up and check to see if there's any other anything else going on.
But this is like, how do you cure this? You're not gonna cut the artery. It's too small.
No, of course not. Let me get some water. My throat's dry. Hold on.
We can talk crap about Mr. Nina now. He can't hear us.
I can.
Oh.
What?
Hi, Miss Katie.
Hi.
Cures means if it hasn't gotten too serious, what they would do is obviously help you to change your diet. That would be number one, is to reduce high cholesterol foods. Then there's other things they can do. They can put in something called a stent, which is it's like if you take a metal tube and insert it into the wall of the artery so that it's like keeping its shape and not allowing more cholesterol to like collect along there. There's other, I'm trying to think of some of the others. Actually, I think it comes up later in this PowerPoint. There's like something called a balloon that they can insert. So they can go in there with a needle and like inflate a balloon, which helps to like break apart the plaque.
My dad recently did that.
Yeah. Can you tell? Do you know much about it?
He did like 2 weeks ago. It doesn't hurt like he said. It feels weird, like a metal thing just like shoved through your hand.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They put it through here, through the armpit, right?
Wait, no, like his one from the armpit doesn't work, so he has to go from his toe. Ooh.
From his where?
Oh.
Tongue?
No, toe. Toe.
Oh, okay.
And then you just have to like take this tube and like find the like artery or something, and then just slowly, push it in, and then until you find like I don't know what's the problem, but they just do it, and then he feels much better.
So probably, I mean, depending on
the balloon thing. It's the balloon thing.
Yeah. So what they can do is, I mean, maybe they can find like different, if you go in to get it checked out. I don't know what I'm looking at there. What are you showing us?
Oof.
Oh, yeah, definitely. What they can do is, if he's gone in and they've said like, oh, maybe they had a reason to check out some of his arteries. So they were probably looking at these arteries specifically, which is a good way to come back to.
Yeah, but the doctor said like it's not clotting. It's like the arteries are not in place or something, and then it's like it's squeezing. It's like it's squeezing it. So
it might be narrowing.
I'm not sure. It bends in a weird way, so like blood doesn't pass through.
Okay, I mean, so then that might not be cholesterol related, but the treatment still is the same. That's pretty interesting.
My heart is feeling very bad when we're talking about these topics.
That's when you start to be like, do I have this? Is this something I have?
Like I feel my heart is being pressured right now.
So the same technique, this balloon technique, would work for this narrowed arteries, right? So what they would do is, if you, for whatever reason, they have a reason to check, they could actually check the percentages of like certain arteries and say like, oh, this one is like 50% blocked, and this one is 20% blocked, this one is like 90% blocked. Those high numbers are problems, right? Especially when the ones they're really interested in are the coronary arteries, meaning the arteries that specifically provide your heart with the blood it needs. So these are arteries, whoops, bad color to choose. These are the arteries that are giving your heart the muscles of the heart its own blood supply, right? This is not the blood that's going through the heart and being pumped around the body, but you can see this one comes right off the aorta, and it's giving the muscle itself oxygen and glucose, and then disposing of waste through the veins. Of course, if these arteries get blocked, because they are quite small, it's easy for them to get blocked either by a plaque buildup and narrowing, or by thrombosis and a blood clot. Then suddenly, you would have areas, let's say if there's a blood clot right here, then that means there's no blood coming or going through these parts of the coronary artery. That means like all of this region of muscle would die, right? Now, if that's part of the ventricle, dead muscle cells don't contract. So now suddenly your ventricle can't contract.
Bye-bye.
This is really problematic, right? So this is another reason, like, yeah, you may not know. I mean, it's kind of why people have heart attacks, right? One of the reasons they have heart attacks, you would never know that this is happening. There's no pain here. Maybe you're sort of like, I don't know, you're a bit more tired than usual. You might be maybe a bit of chest pain, like, but you might just be like, whatever, it's not a big deal. Like, it's part of the why heart attacks happen very like surprisingly. Nobody's like, yeah, I had a feeling I was gonna have a heart attack. No, that's not how it happens. You just have a heart attack. It just happens like that. So, yeah, this is not like the symptoms are very difficult to detect. That's why like prevention is actually the easiest way to avoid these coronary heart disease issues. So you see things like oh no, what have I done? Don't do that. Okay, you see things like this. So some of the risk factors, right? So this is where your doctors might be like, okay, like you kind of tick these boxes, maybe we'll do a test to check out your coronary arteries. So like, if you're getting older and if you are a male, okay, males are at much higher risk of coronary heart disease than females are. As you get older, your tissues start to get tired, right? Like they start to not be as bouncy and youthful as they used to be. So your arteries are kind of worn down and they're a bit harder than they were before. Definitely smoking does a whole bunch of different things that are bad for all of your tissues and all of your body. So obviously smoking is going to be a definite check on the risk factor side. Your diet is the other main one, right? Do you eat like a really fatty diet? Do you eat a food that are high in cholesterols, and so on? Do you not exercise enough, or like how much do you exercise? Is your work or your life stressful? Various things. And then of course genetics is the one nobody really knows for sure, but is there maybe history in your family of coronary heart disease, which could be a reason to get checked out. But at the end of the day, it's hard to predict these things. The best thing you can do is try to reduce any of the risk factors, and if you think you might have some of them, is to go check it out. And that, I believe, oh, yes, okay, great. That brings us to the end.
And I spent the whole lesson on the ball and now I'm out.
I didn't hear what you just said.
Wait, do we need to know the factors for the disease?
You should know, no, I don't think you need to know the factors, because I'm reading the thing and it says causes, maybe causes. No, causes is not factors. Causes and consequences, no, don't think so.
And why is this slide here?
Because it's interesting.
Okay.
And it comes up again in I think in the respiratory system topic. This comes up 2 times.
Okay.
Cool.
On the signal sent by the SM node, it's gonna be pretty fast. So the two.
Oh yeah.
So the two contraction is gonna be like almost at the same moment.
But the delay it's just enough delay that they don't happen simultaneously. That's the key takeaway there. If they were connected, then they would definitely happen together, right? But this is like a bit of a delay enough for the signal to travel and give a break between the two.
Look at the bottom.
Wow, we got 20 people. Well, anything else I can clarify for you? I don't know if you saw, I put up the video for drawing a heart. I think you should be able to do that by now. But you can see the screencast that I uploaded. Yeah.